just before your dad called me, I had a dream. All of my dreams from people who have died all take place in my kitchen for some reason. So I was in the kitchen, and it was dark, and there was someone there with me. I knew it was someone I loved. There were no names exchanged. The face wasn't clear. I remember the black hair. And I remember saying, "It is so good to see you. I can't believe it. It's so nice to see you." And then I left the kitchen to go back upstairs. And on the way down in the car, I thought to myself, I wonder if that was Andrew stopping by to say goodbye to me. I truly believe it was him.
come down and give a statement. They didn't want to tell me anything. So I was on the phone holding for almost 3 hours. And I kept telling them that I wasn't going to come down because I had the problem with my back. And it just fueled my senses that something had happened to Andrew. Something bad. I finally just came out and he said, well, just tell me. I already feel like he's dead. Just say if he is or not. And finally they did confirm that he was indeed dead.
the mother of the young man on trial. She sat down next to your dad, and do you know what? He took her hand and held her hand. You know, parent to parent. There was just so much loss everywhere.
As a mother, that's your worst fear, right? How many times do you think about it when your kids are out too late, or when he did get locked up? And just watching this happen, it was just, as kind of an outsider, you know, I mean, I was just a girlfriend. And I was falling apart myself, and had been for many, many years. And I don't know, I just saw how breakable we are, and how fragile we are, and if you don't keep yourself together and you break apart, and then no one's going to be there.
Your brother's death probably impacted me more than anything in my life had up till that point, because it was such a shocking and awful thing that happened to him that, I mean, I couldn't even process it. I think I even still process it to this day. It really put life and relationships into perspective for me.
With Andrew dying, it took away my ability to reach out to just anybody, or to trust everybody, or to be the life of the party. I don't want people to know who I am now, because I'm afraid at any given time it can happen to me. It can happen to someone else I know. It affects us all. We're never going to stop feeling the pain of Andrew being gone, because his life was taken too soon, and he didn't deserve it. He actually was a victim of circumstance. I truly believe that. I don't think Andrew was set up. I think Tyler was set up, and Andrew took the fall.
Tyler was trying to be a baller. He was trying to sell weed. He was trying to sell coke. And people that came to that house, robbed that house that day, weren't there to rob Tyler. It had nothing to do with Andrew.
They thought Andrew was Tyler until after Andrew was already gone. They didn't know.
He got killed because Tyler left him in that house alone.
They were sent to that house
and Tyler was in the shower.
Rob Tyler and kill
They
him.
made Tyler get out of the shower. They made him and Drew stand there. And if they wanted to go take something or steal something, Tyler ran out of the house and left Drew in there alone. Tyler ran out of the house naked and ran to a neighbor's house to have them call 911 and left Drew in the house alone. And they shot Drew, whatever in the chest or back, whatever they did.
They did not go there looking for Andrew. They went there for Tyler, for money that was already owed to them, and they were supposed to rob the house, kill him, and torch the house. But it didn't work out like that. So it had to do with a bad drug deal where they got shorted and they never got their money.
Because basically the way I look at it is, Drew died for Tyler. Drew died and Tyler lived.
For me, I think the battle is over. I feel that I've lost it. I've lost the battle. I feel like there's nothing I can do or say to anybody about their right to own a gun. I was having a conversation with a volunteer out at the prairie, and he was a very nice young man. But he wanted to have his guns, and he used them for hunting, and I said, well, no one needs an AK-47 to hunt. You know, no one needs that gun. He says, well, if you take that away, then they might come after these guns. And it's like, so I told him what happened. It didn't matter. It didn't change his mind at all. It didn't even register. So then I thought, okay, I guess you don't care what happened to me. No, I can't accept that. I can't accept that people should be allowed to have those guns. The NRA is too strong, too powerful. People like us don't have those rights. We don't have the right to say, I don't want gun signs all over the stores and all over. What a way to live. My neighborhood, my society. So I don't know any way to convince people and even the people in the government. They haven't done anything about it. I don't know what it's going to take. What can we do?
Pretend that I'm whole anymore. I was split in two. And I imagine what must have happened. Andrew lying there on the floorboards. Rivers running out of him, calling out for Mom and us. And then how strange it must have been. He breathes out, pushes himself up and out of his body, and then walks out the door of this world. It's been nearly 10 years, and I'm still half awake. I memorize the lines and the faces to hold it all together, but it's nothing. I live in moments, warm Polaroids that I keep close to tell the passage of time. I'm sleepwalking while the whole world is on fire. I've got to find a way to turn these tides. Got to find a way to turn the tide.
Bye.